Hello, everybody. While we're waiting on people to sign in, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and run a PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Okay. Some information for everybody while we're waiting for some people to sign in.
Those look like some fun workshops.
I'm hoping we'll get some videos and pictures from ideas.
Yeah, send them in, people.
So I'm going to stop sharing. All right, so welcome. My name is Lindsay Dragon, and I am the administrative assistant from the Autism Center at Misericordia University. This is part 2 of Autism in the Outdoors, a Parent's Guide with Elizabeth Masi, and she's excited. I do want everybody to know that we are recording this webinar, and it will be posted on Facebook and YouTube, so definitely check it out and share it with anybody you think would benefit from it. But it will always be there for your reference in the event you feel like you forgot something from Liz's wonderful ideas. So another thing is, if you run your cursor along the bottom, you'll see the bar pop up with the chat in the middle. That is where you should ask any questions throughout this event. And you just click on it and it'll pop up and you ask your question, and Liz or myself will bring that up either, if it pertains at the moment or at the end of her presentation. So without further ado, Miss Masi, go ahead and take it away.
Hello. So last time I was in a hotel, but luckily I get to sit in my home for this part of the presentation, which is very exciting. So if you hear street noise, it is because I live in downtown Wilkes-Barre and people love to ride their motorcycles by the window. So let's get started. As Lindsay had mentioned, this is part 2, and we will go over some things that if you were not a part of part 1, I do encourage you to go back and watch that, because we started with some foundational knowledge and some foundational concepts of why we want to integrate the outdoors into the lives of your family. But part 2 is going to be more of the functional, practical side of things, which is always the fun part. So welcome to Autism in the Outdoors, a Parent's Guide, part 2. Who am I? My name is Liz Masi, or Elizabeth Masi, and I work in the environmental industry. I guess we'll go back. We'll give a little bit more background. So I work in the environmental industry. I started in environmental education, and I worked in that for about 6 years at Bear Creek Camp, which is an amazing, amazing place. And then I moved on to the Graham Academy, where I was the environmental education coordinator. There are some pictures from my time at the Graham Academy there. At the Graham Academy, I was working with a range of students ranging from K through 12. If you're unfamiliar, all students at the Graham Academy are living with autism or other emotional challenges, and that's sort of where I really created a background in this. And then I moved on to work at a consulting firm in the renewable energy industry, where I'm doing more technical biological work with that, and it's fun, but it's definitely a lot different than environmental ed. So I always get excited to go back to my environmental ed roots.
You
So
can't get too far away. Liz also is constantly in the community working with her former students and also, individuals like my son. So we were with her this weekend going hiking, and it was a blessing to have her there. So thank you again.
well, yeah, it always calls me back. Um, so the rundown of this presentation is that it is the second video to a two-part series. And like I'd said a couple minutes ago, I definitely encourage you to go back and watch the first one. It was a lot of fun. Lindsay and I laughed, and a lot of good information was put forth. And in totality, this series will serve to teach you tools for integrating the outdoors into your child's life. As always, I want to hear from you, so please utilize the chat button. And I know that from the last presentation, Lindsay may have some questions for me from various viewers. So please actively chat your thoughts and questions throughout the video. I'd be happy to answer them. So we're going to go over two main things in today's video, and that is reviewing over bringing nature inside, because that's kind of where we left off, kind of the first functional and practical thing we started to talk about last week, and two, which is trip planning and execution. So those are going to be our two main topics in today's video. So just reviewing from last time, over the past couple of weeks, if you were following these guidelines, we were starting with the home. So we had the bright idea that we're going to start incorporating the outdoors into our child's life. And the first way to do that is by starting with the home. And the reason for that is that your home is a safe space and it is your gateway. Lindsay can definitely co-sign on this. If you have a child with autism, your home is the place where they probably feel most comfortable, where you're going to see some of their best and maybe some of their not so great behaviors. And it is really the place where your child is going to fully open up. So bringing things into your home that you want to see reflected and emanated in their life outdoors is a great place and a great way to go about that. So how do you start at home? You begin by bringing aspects of nature inside, whether that's a house plant or colors like we had talked about last time, different textures into the home. And it is really a place to just start the narrative. And of course, I cannot, in a timely manner, break down how to do this for maybe a child who is in the kindergarten age, or to a child that's in the middle school grade, or even a teenager. So this is something you really have to think about. What age is my child? What ability are they at? And what type of activities do they normally learn and excel with? So this is a slide from last time, but I thought it was pretty important. So as you are bringing nature inside, you are truly starting the conversation. And as we had talked about last time, this can be pretty daunting. And I'm going to use the word narrative again. And I will read this last bullet point. My advice at this stage would be to let your child lead the narrative here. Encourage curiosity and drop expectation. Take their interest and run with it, but be prepared to change course with them. As a parent of a child with autism, you are responsible for being their safety while exploring the natural world. Let them show you the world through their eyes. So this is something that we especially want to hold on now that we're moving into having nature in the household and beginning to take it outside. Truly letting the child run the narrative. And I'm really happy that we just took your boys out to the camp, because there's going to be a lot of good examples from this, I think.
Well, and it's really difficult, I feel, from a parent's perspective, to not feel like you have control, and so that's why starting at home is your best bet, because you don't have to be so nervous, hopefully that they're going to run into the water or something, because you're at home and you're comfortable. But it takes every ounce of my type A personality to hold myself back and let him run the show. It's really hard, but it's one of the most amazing things I've been able to see, is him deciding what to do on his own without me pushing him or telling him where to be. So.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I could imagine that. I am a type A as well. So here, I'm not going to go through them. Maybe I'll pull out one here, but these were just some examples of ways that you can bring nature inside and start the conversation. And I think one of my favorite is having photos of nature. I mean, we as adults, and I mean, I suppose children have more access to the internet now, but we as adults have a concept of what the rest of the world looks like through photos that we went through.
So we may have
Displayed in your home to show that there is a greater and broader world out there. Okay, so we've done all that prep work. We've had a lot of fun in the home, and I'm going to use Lindsay as an example. She's ready. She's ready to go now. She's like, okay, I hung out with Jackson. We integrated all this stuff. We did some great activities. We had a lot of fun. Now we're going to get into trip planning. She feels ready. And I think just this photo in general is a great way to break down any situation. And it's the who, what, when, where, and why. And you could use this really easily and very simply in your trip planning. So let's move through that.
Sorry, I had to step away for just a minute to check on the kiddos. Their dad isn't home yet, so I apologize.
I missed you. So we're going to start with the who. So the who in this situation is who you're actually going to bring to this. And I would suggest that you start small. You may be encouraged to invite people from your mom's group, or invite a bunch of kids from the school, or invite a bunch of kids on a sports team. I would suggest away from this. I think when you first start out with this, if you keep this as intimate as possible with your child, maybe it's just you and your significant other and the child, that you're going to see a little bit more success with this, because you're not only getting your child acclimated to this, you're getting acclimated to this and how that dynamic works. And away from your immediate family, I would also suggest that you maybe think about incorporating your child's support network. So does your child have a BT? Does your child have an OT, a PT that's willing to come out and be a part of this and sort of work through this with you and see what's working, maybe see what's not working?
That's a lifesaver for us personally. We take a weekly trip to a store, and because she's with us, it really helps me see how I can redirect in a situation that's not favorable.
Oh yeah, and just having different eyes on a situation and different opinions, because, if you are someone who, and I mean, I love to be in control of situations, who wants to be in control of a situation, you may not be seeing a clear gateway to something that someone who has another person who has your child's best interest in mind could be like, wait, let's try this avenue. And then you're able to quickly troubleshoot that and move on. So definitely consider the support network here and start small. This should not be a gigantic outing. It should just be a tight group of people. The focus is the child, obviously, at first. And always, but you can make it more of a social thing after.
One thing, a lot of times I really want to go somewhere, but because I didn't have enough time to prepare, I'll go ahead and say, hey, let's just try it. And it usually always ends in disaster. So
yes.
Taking the time to prepare and plan, sometimes it's okay to say no. It's not going to work today, maybe next week.
Yep, absolutely. I think in the beginning here, being prepared, maybe a little over prepared, is the way to go. When you're My mom always told me, you can't take off a sweater you didn't bring. So in the beginning here, being over prepared is definitely the way to go. You want to have everything in your arsenal to try to mitigate any issues and make this a pleasurable and exciting experience. And as you become more comfortable of, items or things that you definitely utilize all the time, you can become a little bit more lax with it. And that just really comes with experience. So we did the who, now we're going to do the what. So the what here is the type of trip you're going to take. And there's 2 trips. You can do a planned event or you can do self-guided. So a planned event would be that they do them at Kirby Park all the time. Let's say, like I just watched a Facebook video and I actually heard the voice of one of my old students in the video. They had the Wilkes-Barre police there and they were showing the canine dogs, and I heard a couple of my students in the background. So this is an event that's outdoors at Kirby Park where someone else is coordinating this and providing some sort of entertainment. And there's obviously pros and cons to that, which we'll quickly go over. And then there's the self-guided, which I would compare to what Lindsay and I did. We went to Bear Creek Camp on Sunday, and we went out for a really relaxed hike where we just kind of played in the woods and, let the trail kind of take us until the kids got tired and we got tired. So there's 2 ways to go about this. My personal choice for you would be to do approach 2, which is self-guided. But if you're interested in doing a planned event, you could definitely, if you live locally, I suggest discovernypa.com. If you type in the keyword child or youth, there will be events everywhere. And then the Autism Center at Misericordia might be a good resource as well. So I would definitely say the pros of a planned event is that it takes a little bit of headache out for you. You know what you're going to. You can create like a really good social story behind it, like balloon animals at the park. You can really prep your kiddo for that. But the con is that there's a little less leeway. Let's say you get there and your child is just not interested in the people or becomes overstimulated or just doesn't want to do that activity anymore. You're kind of in a bind because you either have to stay there and muscle through it or you get to leave. It's one or the other. So the pros of a self-guided event is that you can really use that opportunity to let your child lead you down whatever path they take.
Liz, real quick on that note, we've been to the arena for an event and we paid our money, we got our tickets, we got our food, we got our drinks, and we went and sat down in our seats. And within 10 minutes, we had to get up because, being in that confined space, Jackson wanted to move around. And you can't do that when you have a ticketed seat. So he was kicking the person in front of us and, he was not having it. And so we paid all that money so that he could go walk around the outside while everybody else was watching the show and run his hands all up around the center block, wall. And I said, well, that's not going to happen again. So luckily, another event came along and we were able to then provide a social story and get one of the suites upstairs. And it was provided by through SAFE, supporting autism and families everywhere. So, but that social story from mom who has worked there was so appropriately fantastic, and we were able to watch the entire show. So the same place, 2 different approaches to one planned event.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's just another reinforcer how planning can really just change the outcome of this, and how I just love those social stories, how utilizing this and starting things back home can really influence. I mean, even ordinary people don't want to go to certain things without having a concept. When we go places to a party, we'll text our friends beforehand who's going to be there. Like, you want to know. And it's the level of what you can handle that really changes it. So we have to consider that overstimulation can really become a factor here. All right, so let's move on to the when. The when is really when you have availability as a family, but just consider times of day for sure and times of the week. Weekdays are really great for self-guided trips. There's going to be less people out, especially if you go to these public parks. Like weekday mornings, you're just going to have a more secluded feel, and you're going to have the space to yourself a little bit more. And if you go on the weekends, this is a high recreation time. We're in summer, we're moving into fall. So you're going to expect to see a high volume of people. And if you want this time to allow your child to be themselves and explore and feel comfortable, the weekends may even become stressful for you. So I would suggest going to the weekdays if you have that. And if you go on the weekends, maybe have a backup plan, because we have an area near us called the Seven Tubs that has had people parking down the highway just to get into. So you may show up and realize, okay, this is not happening. So if you choose to go on the weekends, I would certainly have a backup plan. And on top of all of that would be checking the weather. Obviously, we're not made of sugar, so we won't melt. Rain's fine. But this comes at a broader sense, because your child's enjoyment level of this can be affected by the weather. I noticed, and I'm sure Lindsay can speak to this, that certain medications that children take in sunlight can make them physically ill or can hurt them. It can affect their mood. It can cause illness. And even when there's a rainstorm coming or a thunderstorm, it can really put them off balance. So going out at a good weather time is a good choice. Anything you can do in your favor is the way to go.
Liz, what is that? The barometric pressure that drops?
The barometric pressure, and you feel
It
it.
really, I've only ever heard it with individuals who've had like surgery, like they broke their arm and they had a rod put in, and it starts to hurt or
Yeah.
cramp, or if somebody has like bad arthritis, when that pressure drops, man, they are achy. And it's so funny because individuals with autism, a lot of these things that just don't happen normally, everything's just rewired a little bit
Yeah.
sometimes, and that could have a huge effect on somebody without anybody realizing what's going on.
Absolutely. They could become extremely sensitive to this. And, it's one of those things when we get into troubleshooting and mitigation that it's something to consider if you notice that your child is having a hard time with the activity or just, being out in nature. Is something going on with the weather? Is there a storm coming? Is there too much sun exposure here, etc.? So it's something definitely to keep in mind. While working at the Graham Academy, anytime it got over, 85 degrees and it was full sun, we were inside. We did not go outside because the risk is higher than the reward at that point.
Yeah.
So the where. This is basically where you're going to choose to go on your outing. And here are some things I would definitely consider. Proximity to your house, or proximity to a safe space for you. Accessibility when you actually arrive. If your child is not able to walk very far due to their, physical ability or simply their age, young children aren't really designed to hike super far and get into the backcountry. You want to think about accessibility of parking lots and where you can park your car. The infrastructure that's there. And this can go anywhere from a playground. Francis Slocum has a great playground, or pavilions where you guys can just sit and relax in the shade and have a nice flat place to eat lunch or eat snacks or cool off. And then the fourth thing would be the natural attraction. And that is, what are you going there for? Are you going there to maybe go up to Hickory Run and walk across the boulder field? Or would you like to see water features at Ricketts Glen? Or would you like to play near a lake? These are things to consider, and it all just goes into what your goal is for that day. And then right below here, I listed some great areas in NEPA. And if you would like to reach out to me, and tell me what exactly you're looking for, I'd be happy to go back and forth on some areas for you. But those are my 4 favorite places. Francis Slocum is great for kids. There's a lot of infrastructure. There's parks, pavilions, a lake, boat rentals, an environmental education
Bathrooms
center, bathrooms.
everywhere.
I would definitely consider bathrooms. Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful place.
Okay, and we have the why. So, as a parent of a child with autism, you are responsible for their safety while exploring the natural world. Let them show you their world through the eyes. That is the why. I pulled that from an earlier quote. Remember, that's why you're there. You're not there to necessarily complete a specific objective. You are there to allow your child to have a great time and explore their world. So remember that why when you feel like things aren't exactly going your way. As long as you're there with them, it does not matter what you're doing, and I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, they're not at home on a tablet. They are not staring at the same show, watching it on repeat.
Yes.
YouTube videos. This is great.
So now we move to the how. So what is the how? How are you going to achieve the why by doing the how? And that is hiking down a trail. Lindsay and I walked, and her husband Tim walked down a trail for about an hour. We did a variety of different things with no real objective. And that achieved so much because her sons were able to explore together, and they let us most of the time, whether we wanted them to or not. So it could be as simple as just hiking or walking, admiring water features, playing near a puddle, going to a lake, splashing around. Or you could be a little bit more coordinated and do outdoor games. And these outdoor games do not have to be full of props and full of items that you bring. We played The Floor is Lava in the Woods multiple times throughout our hike, and it could have occupied us for an entire 8 hours. So these things will come naturally and will come organically. Okay, so we've picked our location, and now we want to do a little bit more research in order to effectively plan. So we chose our location, keeping in mind proximity, accessibility, the things that we want to go see. But now we have to be a little bit more prepared on the back end, and that's where you really step in as a parent. So I would suggest creating a parent bag and a kiddo bag. Now,
be careful not to make them too heavy, because keep in mind, you may have to carry that kid.
Yes, and the bag.
From experience.
Yeah. And I think I noted it in one of the slides here, but that kiddo bag, again, I want you to keep in mind what your child normally does in a day-to-day. Some children always have their backpack on with comfort items, sensory items, their language device, and that backpack is integral to their learning, and it is integral to their day-to-day. If your child's never put on a backpack before and they have no interest, I really wouldn't suggest starting it that day, because chances are it's going to hit the ground real fast. So if that kiddo bag goes into yours, keep the weight of that in mind. It's probably going to happen. So this could be just a smaller thing, but there are some things that we're going to put in there. And then you have your parent bag, which you're always going to have on you. I want it to be on your person. A lot of times I'll see parents leave their go bags in the car, and suddenly we're 30 minutes into an endeavor in the woods and their kid really wants a snack, and it's a 30-minute walk back. So having that on you is really the important part. You can't take off a jacket you didn't bring. So we'll go into specific things that we're going to put in those bags, but overall, the purpose of the parent bag for me is to pack things that are readily available to de-escalate situations and quell worries. You'd be so surprised that the ultimate meltdown could just be solved by putting a Band-Aid on a cut that's not there.
Yep.
I worked as a summer camp counselor for over 6 years. Sometimes a kid just wants a Band-Aid on their knee and they didn't even fall. You're just like, okay, put the Band-Aid on the knee, they're done crying, they're happy as a clam. This bag is full of practical items. It's not full of too much. It's full of things that are practical and that will keep a situation safe and keep a situation calm. And then we have the kiddo
Wipes.
bag. Wipes.
Wipes.
She's always got them. So we've got the kiddo bag. And that is important to pack things that are supportive of your child's success. And this can mean a wide array of things. Some children have iPads. They have communication devices. Some children carry their bathrooming kit with them. Or it might mean packing that one comfort item or sensory item that they always gravitate to and can use to interact with the world around them. So say they have a little blue fish toy. Well, now they could actually use that to interact with the outside world and use that as a connection and, create a relationship with that moment and form a memory around it. And then I would also say it's just important to pack what your child is responsible for in day-to-day life. So like I said before, if your child does not carry around a bag, then maybe you just carry all of those things for them. So keep that in mind. Okay, so here are some things that we could put into our parent bag. Some of them seem obvious, but like I said, you don't know you need them until you don't have them. Sunscreen, it's always good to keep that. Bug spray, and on top of sunscreen, maybe a couple extra sun hats just to create shade around their face. A small first aid kit. Dry socks. Say your kid jumps in a puddle and they have a specific sensitivity around their feet. Dry socks may just fix the situation in general, even if you want to keep a little pair of sandals in the bag. A small blanket. This could be used for so many things. Say it starts to get cold outside, or say we just need to take a break and we're in the middle of the woods. Having a small blanket, which they've seen in the house, they're comfortable with, it has the family smell on it, in the middle of the woods can really create a comfortable environment. A small container or a bag, this could be used for so many things, whether it's little things we found outside that we want to take home, like a pine cone or a rock. Everybody loves finding a cool rock in the woods. It's just a great thing. Snacks and drinks. It's never a bad time to sit down and have a snack, take a break, sit down and have a drink, and encourage a hydrated child. A camera. Taking photos is not only great for a parent, but it's also awesome to have photos of these times and then later include these photos in social stories for the next time you want to go out. So make sure you take photos of the places you've gone or specific moments where your child is having a fun time to utilize them in social stories down the line. Any social stories that you created for the day. Because maybe your child gets a little bit caught up in the moment, kind of forgets what we're doing or the purpose of why we're here, and just using that social story that you created to reinforce the activity may calm down a situation.
We've forgotten the social story for the dentist.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we didn't get anything done that day.
I can see why. The dentist is kind of scary. And then I would definitely throw in some other fun things. The Dollar Tree or Family Dollar is a great place for this. Pick up a water net or a compass, and just utilize these things to encourage their curiosity and allow them to lead you. Maybe you're going to sit in a vernal pool and catch some tadpoles with that water net. But I would definitely have some fun things, and you can pick this stuff up at the dollar store. They always have some pretty good stuff. Now in the kiddo bag, like I had mentioned before, you want to include language tools, sensory items, comfort items, and a small water and a small snack for them. If they're at this level of independence where they know that it can recognize to themselves, I'm hungry, I'm going to have a snack, or I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink, definitely include that stuff. It just promotes independence and shows them that that's available to them. I think a large part of these bags is showing them that, hey, I may become a little bit overstimulated, or I may start to have a hard time, but I can trust my parents to know that these things are okay because they have things to help make these bad feelings go away. They have water for me. They have a snack. So having these items with you definitely creates a trust and creates a bond with your child, but also with the experience as a whole. Is there anything you like to bring, Lindsay?
So instead of bringing like a cooler with an ice pack or anything that you want to keep cold, I'll just freeze a water bottle so that then as it melts, I'll have a cold water and it saves some weight.
That's awesome.
And really for us, Jackson, who's 6, has a heat sensitivity. So it's really just about recognizing when he needs a break. Because certain trails that we've been on had large stretches where there wasn't any trees to provide shade. And that's right. As soon as I'm like, we just need to get a little bit further, there's more trees. But if I had, had the hat or a pair of sunglasses, that would have just helped him maybe get a little bit further without shutting down. When that sun is in your face, sunglasses have been a big key for us too. So you just don't know what's going to affect them on that day. It's never the same thing. Why would it ever be the same thing?
Why would it be made easy? Yes. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. Sunglasses and just, even having a small blanket to just go and take a break. Like, these things are creature comforts that can really make a difference in the moment. When I'm working outside in the field, I sat under a tree for 20 minutes today with my coworker just to cool down because we got so overheated, and that really made a difference. I would definitely say taking more breaks is better for you in the long run, and take a longer break than you think you need for them. If you feel like you need 5 more minutes, then take 10 more minutes, because they're a child, their body does not acclimate to things quite the same way, and taking a longer break will be a really good preventative measure. And
the other thing for us is just really understanding that we're there for them as a family. If I had a preconceived notion of what I wanted to do when I went to Boulder Field, that was squashed in the first 2 minutes because I didn't realize how much coordination anybody would have to get anywhere in that national park. So it was definitely a very short trip that I had planned on us having all day, having these great photos, and it ended up not working really at all. So you just got to be ready to not be disappointed, because the kids can feel that whenever you're trying so hard. You can't force them to have fun, and you try, but it usually just doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah, letting go of those expectations of the day and saying, we're going to go for it. And we're going to see how far it goes. Sometimes it's going to turn into a 5-minute outing, and that's okay. It was a 5-minute outing. That's great. Let's try for 6 next time. Like, you can't look at it as a failure. It's just room for growth and room to extend it. And
let's go get ice cream.
Yeah, that's a great point. I put that in here. Okay. So these are just some of my thoughts during the outing. I think a lot of times right before, we'll work really, just as humans, we'll work really hard at something for a couple months. Like, let's say we're training for a race. We'll train for this race for months on end. And then we're standing at the starting line 5 minutes before, the cannon goes off, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, can I even run 500 feet? Did I train the right way? Did I do this? Or if you ever did musical theater, you're standing right in the wings before you go out for your big debut in the scene, and then you can't remember your lines. It's a common fear we all have. So I want you to remember that the prep work was started long before you left the house. So don't worry about it. Now you get to enjoy it. Whatever happens is going to unravel. You can't really control that. You can take the steps, but you get to enjoy the experience as it is. You did lots of prep work. You were a dedicated parent in this moment. So just sit back and enjoy it, and have a great day and form a great memory with your child and your family. And then some other little things would be to make the car ride anticipatory and silly. Have fun, like make up songs about wherever you're going, or listen to some fun music, or joke around with your kiddo, or or tell them about all the fun things they're going to see. Make this an anticipatory thing. Don't make them feel like they're just going to the grocery store with you. They're going to do something great. It is a fun opportunity. And this is just a great way to really prep and create that narrative that they're going to have an awesome time. I would also say that it's important to utilize every moment as an opportunity to teach the importance of safety. Safety is definitely something we want to teach. It is something you have the opportunity to control, and it is a great way to practice the things you've been teaching your child and continue to drill the skills that they've already learned. And that is waiting by the car in the parking lot and not running to go to that playground that's across the road. It is holding mom or dad's hand as you are walking across the street or walking on trails. So utilize these opportunities to show that safety has to exist even out here, and your child will remember that. Let the child lead. Then I just did put in, keep in mind current restrictions. So if for some reason you're watching this 20 years in the future, coronavirus was a thing, but definitely keep in mind current restrictions. So I'm going to bring up a specific example. This Sunday, we got out of the car at Bear Creek Camp. We parked right next to a playground, and the playground was filled with probably 10 kids. There were a lot of kids running around, and due to the current restrictions with COVID, that's not necessarily an ideal situation, especially since children interact and, they're running and exhaling and running up and down things. So even though Lindsay's children definitely wanted to go to the playground, we decided to redirect them to a little bit more of a secluded place just to start and let that playground fizzle out a little bit, but promise them that they could go back at the end, which they did. They had a great time. There was only one kid. So definitely let the child lead, but just in this current climate, keep in mind the current restrictions. But I would say if you make a promise in this situation, to definitely keep it. And then as always, take a lot of photos and utilize them. So throughout the day, now I think everyone's looking forward to the exciting parts of this. Everyone, the easy parts are going to feel really easy, but I promise you that the hard parts may feel a little extra difficult. So let's talk about the troubleshooting, because I think that's what people definitely want to know, and that's where their fears are rooted in this.
And Liz, real quick, one of the things that I see quite often, and we used to do ourselves, is at the first sign of trouble, so many people pack up and go home.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Wait, no, you don't have to leave. Like, there are so many other things. And it's just really about not worrying about anybody else. And your kid will get used to you packing up and leaving. So if they want to go back home and play on their tablet, they're just going to throw a monster fit so that they exactly know
what they want.
Yeah. So keep in mind, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But we're going to sit here for the next however long.
Yes. Yeah. I think the cool thing about outside, and this is a reason why I suggested to try this during the weekdays when there's going to be less people around. And this is not something I've experienced personally, but I've had just a touch of it. And I can't really imagine how it may feel if your child is having a meltdown in public, how those looks from people who maybe are concerned and you're coming from a good place, but also parents who will, lift their nose up at you, wondering what the heck your kid is doing, having a meltdown. And that could be a fear for parents to have other people witness. And so if you truly are afraid of that and you think it may happen, going during the weekday when there's less people there might be a good way to get comfortable with that and learn how to troubleshoot these things when there are less people around. I don't know if, Lindsay, if you want to speak to that at all.
It was really sobering at first. We were the family that would, leave the store without getting our, items. We would hurry and get back inside so our neighbors didn't think that we were hurting our child. But what we've learned, and this was going through all sorts of to autism. Okay, come here, say hello. We have a little child. Give me just a few minutes, okay? All right. So, her name is Miss Liz, remember? We saw her on Sunday. We went hiking, remember? Yeah. All right, give me just a few more minutes, okay? So, sorry about that. The M&Ms, you can have M&Ms after dinner. Okay, love you, bye. I apologize. So that's my 4-year-old. And, but when we started going to the autism walks where there was over, 1,200 people there and everybody has some sort of tie to autism, and you would see kids over here having a meltdown and kids over there having a meltdown, and everybody, it was normal. And
Yeah.
it really helped us understand how to react to a situation in a public place. You don't have to freak out. You don't have to worry about who's looking or not. And it's just things like that'll really help you become a better parent to your child, but also as a family dynamic. We have a 6 and a 4-year-old. We shouldn't have to leave because, one child is having a difficult time. If we know how to troubleshoot some of these, instances, it would have really helped and we could have gotten through the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, I think the fear will kind of dissipate. And I think, when I was working in the school and we would have large family events, it would be a, crazy but beautiful thing to see these students, and these children having a meltdown and families, taking care of it and no judgmentalize around. But I know that if you're not directly related to the autism community, that you don't necessarily understand what's going on. So even concerned eyes may look like judgmental eyes, and sometimes they are judgmentalized, unfortunately. And I hope, being outside and learning how to troubleshoot is a way you can move past those feelings and not care, because you should only care about your family, not what other people think your family.
That's right.
So taking preventative actions all the time. So the best way to avoid something is to make sure it cannot happen. So maybe your child has meltdowns every single time they get hangry. All right, then we're going to bring extra snacks, and we're going to take a couple extra snack breaks, load them up with some granola bars to ensure that your child does not get hangry. You don't have to wait to fix a situation until you're already in the midst of it. This happens having a dehydrated child or person in general. If you were just drinking water for an hour beforehand, you wouldn't get to that point. So these are little things that can lead to the biggest meltdowns that are very simple to avoid by just not allowing them to happen. Remembering your supplies in a time of strife. I think if your child's having a meltdown or you're working with someone who's having a meltdown, you may forget about that entire backpack of things. And honestly, remember those supplies. Start trying items. If your child's having a hard time communicating with you exactly what they need, or they're not able to verbally communicate that to you, one by one, take the item out of the bag. Do you want sunscreen? Do you want bug spray? Would you like water? Go through them all once. If they say no to everything, guess what? You're going through it again because they'll probably want it on the second round. They are in a moment of crisis and they're not necessarily going to be able to communicate what they need perfectly. And taking that time to be patient and offering solutions up to them may be the way to quell the situation. Now, say you've run through the supplies in the bag, you definitely know they don't want water, even though you've tried. Think that the situation may be something that you can't see. Maybe they have a rock in their shoe. Maybe the sun has been really strong and they're starting to feel ill because it's conflicting with the medicine. Maybe there is a thunderstorm coming and the barometric pressure has changed. Maybe they ran into a plant that had a little picker on them and they hurt their arm, but there's not necessarily something that you can see there. It's not always something you can exactly see, and there are little things to keep in mind there. So I would always say, check the shoes, move up and down their skin and point to areas of the body, because they might not be able to let you know exactly what's going on.
That happened this weekend. You were in the front of the trail and Jackson was between us, and I would not have known if I hadn't been walking directly behind him. He stepped on one part of a twig, which caused the branch to pop up, and that little branch part kind of whipped him like a switch on the back of his leg, and he didn't know how to feel about that. And
Oh,
so for a while we were like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And there was no mark, but he was like, "Ow!" Like that was not what he expected.
yeah. And we don't necessarily know how individuals with autism can react to pain or react to different type of sensory exposure. So that thing that we may have been able to shuck off within seconds and say, ow, that kind of hurt, may be sticking with them for 10 to 15 minutes. So doing a physical check where you can make it fun, and try to break them out of this and make them laugh by, maybe going down their body and playing a game like, where does it hurt? This can be a way to break up the situation, bring a little bit of lightheartedness into it, but show them that you're there to address their needs and to meet their needs in that situation. So you could use the supplies in the bags and in your heart and in your mind.
Is that wonderful?
So encourage the use of communication in the best way that suits your child. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many times I would have a student with me who had a communication device, and the communication device wasn't immediately there, and they really needed to tell me something, and the communication device wasn't there for them to do it, and it escalated the situation tenfold.
And you would get classrooms brought to you, correct?
Correct.
So
And this is something that's easily, it could get left. So I had a greenhouse that would just get left in the greenhouse and lost in translation for seconds. But in those seconds, that student really needed that communication book. So having that readily available at all times and keeping a check on that is definitely important. So if your child verbally communicates or signs to you, uses a communication book or a tablet, have that available. Let them try to tell you. They know themselves best in this moment. You can just use a way to troubleshoot this situation.
available and charged.
Charge. Ooh, sad moments when it dies.
Yeah.
So I always like this. I try to remember it in my day-to-day life. You cannot strike out if you did not step up to bat. So be proud of yourself. So let's say this meltdown goes beyond repair. You really do need to go home. This has been going on and persisting for a while, and you sulk and you're like, I just stink. I'm just the worst. I don't get it out of your head right now. Boom, out of your head. I'm going to smack it out of your head. You got up to bat in the first place. You had the confidence, you had the braveness to get up there and fight for your child and take them out, to plan, to prepare. You got up to bat. And the fact that you were able to do that is amazing. And so the only way you can strike out is if you have the chance to get up to bat. And guess what? You always go up to bat in the next inning or the inning after that. Not super good with sports, but whatever. Seriously, be proud of yourself. The fact that you got up there and did that is amazing, and you'll have another opportunity. And like I said, say you only stayed at Boulder Field for 5 minutes. That's great. You got all the way up there. You did that. You've touched a boulder probably. And next time you're going to touch 2 boulders. So keep that mindset, because if you don't have that mindset, your child's not going to have that mindset. You're in the ring with them fighting for this. And if you're not all there and you're not all into this and motivated, they're going to feel that. I promise you. And then the last thing that you can do to troubleshoot a situation is that your planning has allowed you to safely egress from situations. Remember that and calm down. You've chosen a location that's in proximity to your house, that's accessible to your vehicle, that is safe and suitable for your family. And at the end of the day, those are 3 really important things. Nothing short of a forest fire cannot make you prepared enough to go back to your car. You have that available at all times. So please remember that no situation is too big for that, and to calm down and just work through the moment. You have created a safe environment for yourself, and therefore your child is safe, and that's all you have to remember. Do you have anything to add to that, Lindsay?
Um, I mean, no.
No? Okay. Okay, and then this is just some other things that if you get bored, I put this last thing here. Don't forget to land snorkel. So let's go back to the first presentation here. Land snorkeling is basically exploring your environment as if you were snorkeling through that lens and allowing your child to swim along to whatever area they want and explore that through a really unique macro lens. So at the core of this, don't forget to land snorkel. Now, if you do get bored, which I doubt you will, because you're going to be land snorkeling, but if you do, there are a couple little things you could do, really simple things that require no planning and can maybe help you switch out of a bad mindset or a bad moment or a bad couple minutes and just bring you back up and get everything back up to speed. Remember that you could play I Spy. There's so many different colors outside in parks and in the forest. You can play the floor is lava, hopping from rock to rock or log to log. You can play one of my favorite games, Find a Bug, where you get on your hands and knees and the first person to find a bug wins. Or you could do some gross motor games. So you can practice running or you can practice crawling like different animals. So these are like a couple little games that you can keep in your back pocket in case you get bored or that you need to kind of avert your attention away from something and move on from maybe a low point in the day. Or if you need to distract a kid from trying to run to an overcrowded playground during the coronavirus outbreak. So, post-processing. So you've had a great day. It's great because you went there in the first place and you gave it a shot. And now you're trying to post-process the event, which is debatably one of the most important parts of this for any event when you're working with your child. It's a chance to wrap up the experience and to essentially reflect on the parts that worked really well and maybe didn't work so great. And this is something you can do with your significant other or with your child's support system, like their BT, at a bit of a higher, an adult conversational level, and then something that you can incorporate to have a conversation with your child to reflect on the situation and see what they were excited about.
See what they remember.
Yes, yes. As we were leaving Bear Creek Camp, we were all shouting, "See you soon, Bear Creek Camp." It's creating little memories, little flashbulb memories for them that when we go back to Bear Creek Camp, they're going to remember that experience from before. So a great way to kind of post-process this and really button it up, if your child and you are feeling up to it, is to wrap it up with their favorite treat, ice cream. So going for ice cream after anything is a great option. Definitely recommend. And it's a time to really just put a bow on things and show that you have fun as a family and that you go out and do things and that you even have a sweet memory associated with that. I would definitely encourage all of you to soak in the experience and process alone. So maybe when you get back in the car, everyone needs a couple minutes of alone time. You're tired from all the walking and running and land snorkeling. And it's just a chance to process everything alone and kind of reflect on what worked. But not too shortly after, I would start asking your child questions to see what they liked, or if they're at that level, have them communicate to you things they liked about that day. And that's a great moment. You get a great golden nugget of opportunity for the next time you go out, that maybe they really liked playing the floor is lava in the woods. And you incorporate that every time you go out until they start saying they don't like it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're feeling up to it a few days after, you can do an activity to solidify the memory. Maybe you find a coloring sheet, or one of my favorite things to do with my campers was print out a photo of them or the group, and then really simply in cardboard, cut out a photo frame and cover it in macaroni with glue, or paint it or crayon it. And then they can associate that memory and remember that day. So post-processing is debatably one of the most important parts of it, and could be a really useful tool for gauging the interest of what you did right and what maybe is not going to get included the next time.
I use that time to look at the photos and videos that we just took.
Yes.
And it's just, it gives us, a minute to, compose ourselves before we get back on the road. And, I get excited about that.
Yes, the pictures are the best part. So all in all, we're wrapping up here. Some things I want you to remember, some more nuggets, is that there is no problem that cannot be solved with a little patience. And I guarantee that it's in the bag. Like I said, I had a camper who just wanted a Band-Aid on the knee that was not scratched because they fell 8 hours ago, earlier in the day. They're convinced it's bleeding. Give them the Band-Aid. This is no time for a power struggle. Remember what's in the bag, and remember, keep some tools in your mind of how to troubleshoot this and show them that you care for them. Next one, say it again, avoid power struggles outside. Show your children that the outdoors is a place that they can feel comfortable, not limited. If they want to go do it, I would say go do it. Allow them to see that they can trust this area and they can trust the area when you're there, and that you're going to help them make this a fun experience. And lastly, use each outing as a learning experience to build on. Even if you go to the same place 10 times in a row, lateral growth can still occur this way. So lateral growth, vertical growth we see as, okay, you went to Francis Slocum one day, and then you went to Moon Lake the next day, and then on the third day, you climbed Everest with your 4-year-old. Whoa. That's vertical growth. Yeah. Lateral growth is you go to Francis Slocum every single weekend for an entire year. And a space for your child that they're excited to go to every single weekend. It does not have to be a new thing every time.
One of the things we did at Francis Slocum, we started out going there when he was in his stroller, and I would just walk around, the roads, and then we graduated to the playground when he could play. Mm-hmm. And then we graduated to him walking some of the small trails, not even trails, just like down by the kayaks and the boat rentals or whatever. Yeah. And then we went on a small trail, and he didn't hesitate. So then we went on an actual trail to the Francis Slocum spot, and he loved the cave. It was one of his favorite things about it. Aww. And it was just really interesting to see him go so head first, not literally or physically, but just jumping in. And like, this is a cave. And he associated it with a movie that we watched, The Croods, or Cavemen. And yeah. He started scripting from the movie, but it was very appropriate for the situation.
Yeah, that connection.
And, yeah, very memorable.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep, lateral growth.
Yep.
Take that time. Create that comfortability, create that trust. It's going to go a long way. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for you tonight. So thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to. It's a good that we're stopping because I'm stumbling over them, and I'd be happy to answer. And then if you had any questions for me that popped up tonight or tomorrow, or if you're watching this after the fact, that is my email on top, and then feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn there.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, if you have any questions, right now is the great time to ask them in the chat box. We do have a question from the survey that we put out a couple weeks ago. We put it out. If somebody was wanting to go kayaking, right?
Okay.
I've been kayaking one time before, and it's something on my, list that I want to do more often, but you're really low and in the water, right?
Traditional sit-in kayaks or sit-on-top kayaks will have you pretty low with the surface of the water. Playaks have you a
Is a
little bit
playa?
higher. There's a plyak and a kayak. Kayaks are the most common. They will have you, almost hand level with the water.
Yeah, I was very surprised at how in the water you are with a
Yeah.
kayak. So one of the things that I would assume I would start with personally would be making sure that my son is okay wearing a life jacket.
Yes.
Right. And then to go kayaking in general, it's, you just have to be prepared. I would, especially checking the weather, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of great state parks around here that have a lot of different boat options, and a lot of times they are prepared for families. So if your child's able to go solo, and normally there's an age or a height kind of restriction on that, or minimum age and height. But they're also suited for family outings, so they're going to have kayaks that you can fit your kiddo in there with you. Now, before you go, there are some things that you want to keep in mind. If you have a child in that boat, or you're not a frequent kayaker, so in the state of Pennsylvania, adults only need to have the PFD on their person. It does not have to necessarily be on them. If
What's
you
a
wear
PFD? Personal
flotation device, so a
Okay.
life jacket. If you are a child, they need to be wearing it. It's under a certain age. I don't want to say the wrong age, but any child, especially your child, would want to be wearing one. Any type of open water, all adults should be wearing one. Anyway, I would definitely get comfortable wearing them. You can pick up some pretty cheap ones from Walmart, and maybe you start in the community pool or the bathtub. You could, if you have a pool in your backyard, or just wearing them around the house for a couple minutes and just getting comfortable with how it feels.
And that way you can adjust the straps to where they need to be.
Exactly. I've worn a lot of different PFDs throughout the years, working at the summer camp, going on boating trips, and not all of them are made equal. So maybe this is the time that you want to get one that really fits your child well. I suggest the vested life jackets, because you're able to quickly release them with buckles in the front and make a really comfortable fit on the sides with straps. Whereas the ones at state parks and summer camps will be an over-the-head PFD that you kind of put your head through a little keyhole. It's bright orange, and there's one belt that goes around the side, and they're very irritating, uncomfortable, and they really push up on your head, and that could be that could be you're done. So
they're not going to wear it.
Having one that your child actually likes to wear, step one. Step two would probably be getting comfortable with how the kayak feels. It's a little bit, it's pretty stable overall, but if you've never been in a kayak, you're going to wobble a lot until you get your water balance. So if you have the opportunity, or someone has a kayak, even if you start in the yard and you practice how you're going to sit with your child in the kayak, and you practice the motion of paddling and what that's going to look like on land beforehand, a lot of the state parks will allow you to do that and practice that motion on land beforehand. You may even have the opportunity to call them and say, hey, we're not going to be renting today, but I want to prep my child for this. Can you set up a boat on land for us and show us how to do this for about 15 minutes, so that next weekend we could come back, or in a few hours we can come back and go for it. So definitely do a literal dry run. And then when you get in the water, just stay near the bank, take your time.
Don't get too far out.
Do not get too far out, because if you have a child that's bailing in the middle of the lake, it'll be funny. Make sure someone's taking a video. They'll be fine, because they have the PFD on and they're just flipping into the water. But that could even, they might not realize that what they're doing by trying to evacuate the boat. They
Right.
may not realize that they're about to go into cold, foreign water. So staying close to the shore, that in case you do tip over, which happens to a lot of people at first, you can quickly get out of the water and dry off.
Well, and keep in mind that a 3-year-old with autism turns into a 6-year-old with autism, a 10-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a full-grown adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't take the time to teach them the safety precautions, it's not as easy to pick my son up now as it was even 6 months ago. He's just big.
Yeah.
But it really is, drowning is the number one cause of death for individuals with autism.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you can't, I mean, swimming is just a life-saving, tool that all, kids and adults should have. So maybe even start as early as January with, going to this, the YMCA or other indoor areas. And I know that there are swimming lessons out there run by Safe
Mm-hmm.
through a number of places all over our area, Luzerne County and others as well.
Yeah.
So starting with that, and then maybe, in the early spring, we can get together and do a whole, event where we practice putting on life jackets.
Ooh, that's
Nothing is off the table.
I want to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you do plan to do that this summer, so I lifeguarded for quite a bit. Great thing to do as a teenager. And so if you are lifeguarding a boating session, from my experience, some things you teach people is that you do not evacuate out of the boat. A lot of young kids do it to be funny, and what ends up happening is the lifeguard has to legally go do a boat rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think if you are going to do this at a public place like Francis Slocum, it is in your best interest, even though it's going to feel maybe embarrassing or for some reason, that you need to tell the lifeguard exactly what you're working with here, disclose that your child has autism and may choose to evacuate the boat and to not show concern. They might be able to support you in different ways by maybe coming out in a boat next to you or near you and supporting you in that situation. Because if you don't disclose that and it ends up happening, they might mistake your child, especially if they're in the middle school or teenage age, for trying to be a kid who's trying to joke around and flip out of his boat to impress people, and not necessarily realize that this is a behavior. So it's definitely something that if you can coordinate with the lifeguard, or if you don't feel comfortable telling the teenager that's lifeguarding at Francis Slocum, if you want to call the lifeguard management office beforehand at the state park and let them trickle that down the chain, I would highly suggest that.
And even just flipping over, there's this thing I learned about not so long ago from an article, was dry drowning, where if, an individual takes in a bunch of water and they may seem fine for the
Mm-hmm.
next couple, hours, that can still affect them that later that night. And, if you're not comfortable swimming, you don't know how to hold your breath underwater. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an accident happening when you're flipping. So nobody's prepared for it.
Yes.
So kayaking, that's a tough one. Anything with water is tough.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, but I think it's doable, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that it's a great idea for maybe next spring, maybe next winter, to try to do a workshop on that, because I think that would be a really fun, and it's fun to learn. It promotes so many different types of gross motor and fine motor skills, and it's just a really fun and beautiful way to experience the outdoors.
Yeah. Well,
Ooh,
that's great. We have a plan. Well, thank you so much again for all of your time. Um, we don't have any other questions at the moment. So I do encourage anybody who does have a question to email Liz directly, or you can email the Autism Center at autism@misericordia.edu. And again, my name is Lindsay Dragon, and we'll see you next time. And if we do another training with Liz, definitely sign in, as she is full of knowledge.
something like that.
Well, thank you again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Bye.